welcome back to another episode. So, this week I figured I'd go into my Mega Drive collection. Largely because it's a system I've been collecting on and off for the last few years, and one I haven't played for the last few years, which is fine. I'm mainly going to be doing this week because the plan is I am going to get out the titchy tiny Mega Drive that I bought a few years ago for about 21 quid. It's one of those little ones that had full compatibility across the... Well, I say full compatibility. Some compatibility across the board for cartridges, which... need more of those, Sega. Come on. Maybe one for Saturn. Maybe one for Dreamcast. That would be nice. Get on with it. Anyway. So... yeah, we are going to be talking about the Mega Drive. We are not talking about the 32X, and we are not talking about the Sega CD. I may do those as kind of maybe a joint one, a joint video in a couple of years. I want to get some more games for that, for those two systems. Got a few. I don't have half of the ones I want, especially on 32X, because they're kind of expensive. They're so expensive. Ridiculously expensive. So, instead we're just going to be talking about base Mega Drive, and I guess I will start with the loose games. So we got Mega Games 1, which I think just had Column, Super Hang-On, and World Cup Italia 90, which... not great. Not a great mix. I do have the others boxed, and the first one now I'm looking at it. And I think those have better games in them, so... yeah, not a solid start, but a solid follow-on in the form of Toe Jam and Earl Panic on Funkotron. Now, I first played Toe Jam and Earl on the original Xbox. I played the third one. It's weird. That game's strange, and I know that it was originally in development for the Dreamcast and was largely finished, from what I'm given to understand, but instead they just ploughed it onto the Xbox after Sega left the industry. Well, the console making side of it, anyway. But Funkotron. Haven't played too much of this, but I'm a big Toe Jam and Earl fan, if strictly because it's freaking weird and right up my alleyway. Balls. It's a really terrible fighting game. That's supposedly 3D. I'm not sure if it uses the kind of like Sega's version of the I think it was called the FX chip or the AX chip that was used in Star Fox, which will be next week, by the way. I'm not sure if it was, because they had that for Virtua Racing, which I was. I'm not sure if it uses that. I think it does. Could be horribly wrong. But yeah, I've played this game and it is freaking terrible. It is dreadful. It's not a fun time. Unlike, weirdly enough, Crew Ball. So, Crew Ball is a video game based off of the band Motley Crue. Which you don't get games based on bands anymore. At least, not real bands. Occasionally you'll get like a weird one, like when they tried to bring back Guitar Hero and it failed miserably. But Crew Ball, it's a pinball game. I believe it uses some of their music. I mostly know them from my time playing Brutal Legend. But yeah, I quite like Motley Crue. Thus I bought the game. Plus a friend, a roommate of mine years ago was obsessed with the band and kind of went looking for something for her for Christmas and came across that. Didn't give her this, obviously, but I picked that up a few years later. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Not a bad game. Very much just kind of one of those fairly standard puzzle games of the era, and unfortunately based on the bad Sonic cartoon from the 90s. And no, I don't mean Underground. I mean, I think The Adventures, because it wasn't Sat AM. That was a good one. Miss Pac-Man. It's just basically an arcade port. It's fine. It's fine. Shame about what happened to Miss Pac-Man, but I guess that's what happens when you don't, well, when you don't get your freaking contracts in order, Namco. Speedball 2, Brutal Deluxe. Kind of a sequel to Speedball, which I think I had. No, I don't. Oh, shocking. How dreadful. How dreadful. I should pick that up. I don't know what it's on, though. I think it's on Mega Drive. But yeah. Fairly interesting sports game. Haven't played too much of it. Unlike the following, where I have played a bucket load of Altered Beast, and I am still very, very bad at it. Not a long game. Like maybe an hour at most, but I paid £6 for this, so I don't really care. Duel Master, which I will freely admit I bought exclusively for the name. Turns out it's a side-scrolling kind of action-adventure thing where you have to go around collecting like magical rings of power, which is kind of cool. Not as good, however, as Dynamite Heady, which is a bizarre little game where you switch your head out and it gives you different abilities. I can only think of one other game with that premise, and it's Deadhead Fred on the PSP. Also a freaking weird game. Like, really, really, really weird. Maybe I'll do a PSP video at some point. Let me know in the comments if you would find that interesting. But, yeah. Probably two of my heavy hitters for last two of my loose cartridge collection, which is Sonic and Knuckles. Unfortunately, finding a box version of this for a decent price is uncomfortably large. Large because the box was, unfortunately, cardboard. Thank you, Sega. As a result, I've only got the cartridge version. If you don't know, which, fair enough if you don't, but if you're watching this, you probably know. If you stick different Sonic cartridges in the top of this, you'll get different games. It does sort of work on the first one, but you get something called, I believe, Sonic Jam, or the Sonic community in general called it Blue Sphere, which is a kind of plays around with that game's code a bit. I'm not too sure about it, to be honest. You may remember a few weeks ago now, I did console RTS games, and I'm fairly certain I mentioned this, but if I didn't, shame on me. Doom 2, Battle for Arrakis. Kind of the quintessential and original RTS game as we'd maybe know it nowadays. I have the other one, that's also kind of considered the granddaddy of all RTS games, but this was kind of the impetus. This was Westwood, just before they developed Command & Conquer, then they made Command & Conquer, and Command & Conquer exploded, and now nobody talks about Command & Conquer. Fuck you, EA. Really wish EA hadn't bought out Westwood. I think we'd have seen a lot more from them. So that's it for my non-boxed collection. I figured I'd just show this off as well. Oh man. The rubber band broke. Anyway. Just the arcade power stick. Pretty solid. I don't really use this for playing on Mega Drive. I use it for playing on Vectrex. Occasionally when I bother to get the Vectrex out. I'll probably do a video on that as well. So stay tuned. Subscribe if you're interested in the grand total of 6 games that I have for the Vectrex. Admittedly, two of them are interesting. Which is now... Oh no! 8. I'm gonna have to play that more. Okay, moving on. The boxed games. I guess we'll start from these. Again, a bad introduction to the box collection. Super Hang-On's fine, but Italia Football, don't care. Columns, good board. Not my cup of tea. This is a bit of a step up. You've got Super Monaco GP. Oh no, that's 3. Huh, silly. You've got Revenge of Shinobi, Streets of Rage, and Golden Axe. Definitely the strongest of the Mega Drive's compilations, I suppose. Certainly, actually, yeah. Yeah, probably the strongest considering the following has Alien Storm, which is fine. Super Thunderblade, which I don't really care about, and Super Moto GP, which I also don't care about. Yeah, this is a game I don't really know why I own, but I own it. Well, I probably own it for one particular reason. Tengen. Steel Talons is kind of a helicopter sort of 3D flight sim sort of thing. It's not very good to look at, to be perfectly honest with you, but then again, it's a 16-bit game. And it's attempting 3D. It's not going to look good. Tengen, though, if you don't know, is a brand of Atari. Was a brand of Atari back in the day. What they were doing was, they went, oh, we can't release any of our games for some asinine reason, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a company called Tengen, and we're going to get them to release our games on our behalf. I do have another Tengen game, which is probably one of my flat-out favourites on the system, but I'll get round to that. Okay, I picked this one up recently. Centurion Defender of Rome by Kellen Beck and Bits of Magic. A long ass name. But yeah, it's kind of a strategy game where you play as Rome fighting Carthage during the Punic Wars, which very cool. Very cool. £3. I haven't played this yet. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with a manual, which I feel for a strategy game from 1991, you're going to want, because otherwise, yeah, that's going to be a painful experience trying to play that without a manual. Yeah, this game. So a friend of mine gave me a whole bunch of Mega Drive games for free a while ago, including, I think, both of the Mega games, ones that I've got here, which is nice of him. Thank you very much. This was one of them. It's Evander Holyfield's Real Deal Boxing, which looks like a slightly naff Punch-Out clone if you do it from the side, which is fine. I can't seem to get rid of it because no one will take it because it's Genesis. It's not actually Mega Drive, which is a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's fine. I'll hang on to it, I suppose. Okay. Oh yeah. So I was speaking earlier about Sega's equivalent of the VFX chip. I think it's VFX chip. It might even just be the VFX chip. Oh yes, the Sega Virtual Processor with Virtual Racer. I've owned a couple copy of Virtual. You know, I've never actually looked at the cartridge. That is a honker boy. That is a honker cartridge. I've never actually owned this one before. Unlike the Saturn version, which I used to have, and then I got rid of because I found out it wasn't actually a port. It was a visual remake. So when they were copying, when this company was like, oh, make Virtua Racer for the Sega Saturn, what you're gonna do is, oh, we're not giving you any of the source code though. Right? How are we going to port it then? I know, we're gonna get one of the arcade machines, and then we're going to painstakingly record our experiences of playing it, and then rebuild it from the ground up for the Sega Saturn. As a result, it doesn't play anything like this. And you know what? The 32X version, which I've picked up as well, also doesn't play like this version. Doesn't play like the Saturn version. And I need to pick that one up again because it's not super expensive. But yeah, weird little game. Fun little game. But yeah, weird story with that. They re-released it on Switch recently, full-blown remake. I think it has online, or like full-blown arcade port. I think it has online, so if you're into Virtual Racer, get that version. We've got a Bitmap Brothers game from Accolade, Gods. From what I hear, Gods is quite a, well, landmark platformer of its time. It was a cinematic platformer, much in the vein of the following game that I'm going to show you. Unlike some of the more arcadey stuff, like, say, Sega, so like Sonic or Alex Kidd. This one was more slower paced, far slower paced, and quite brutal from what I'm given to understand. Had a sequel, but I don't know too much about it. I haven't got around to playing this yet, but I will give it a bash shortly. Maybe when I finally plug in my Mega Drive after a couple of years and I still buy games for it. Isn't that terrible? Right, Another World. Everybody has a copy of Another World because it has been released on every single freaking thing under the sun. I think they've even released it on Atari Jaguar recently, if I remember correctly, or at least somebody ported it. Eric Chahi's first game. I believe that man has done 3. He did that. Oh no, he's done 4. He's done 4. I am mistaken. Yeah, this was his first though. Kind of a really, really heavily cinematic platformer that still looks amazing, considering it's running on 16-bit technology. Like, the cutscenes are amazing. It's just genuinely a technical powerhouse. I'm quite a fan of Eric Chahi's, actually. My wine... let me see if I can find it. Yeah, my wife a couple of years ago bought me Paper Beast on the PS4, which... as soon as I get a headset, I'll get around to playing. And most of his work is very heavy on the technical side of things and how that can be utilised in the game itself. So, for example, his second game was From Dust, which relied very heavily on terrain deformation and kind of building up different islands to get through the game. Not a long game. I don't think any of his games are particularly long. I'd imagine Another World, and you know what? I can't for the life of me remember the sequel. I think he worked on that. I could be horribly wrong. It's actually one of the only games of his I don't have. But yeah, I might track that down actually. That'll be next on the buy list. But moving on, Monster World 4. This is actually my own... Now, I'm a big repro guy. I like reproduction games, and this is one of the only ones I have for the Mega Drive. And you know what? It runs really well. I wouldn't say this is the way to play Monster World 4 nowadays. Not with the Switch port. Well, pseudo Switch port. I think it's more of a Switch remake out. But if you're going to play Monster World, this is definitely my favourite one. A lot of fun. I'm not a big platformer guy, but that is just certainly one of my favourites. Okay, if you've seen my Sonic video, which if you haven't, it's 47 minutes of me talking about every single Sonic game under the sun that I have, you'll know that I quite like Sonic 1, I quite like Sonic 2, and I quite like Sonic 3, which is loose. Not really. Sonic 3 is fine. I think Sonic 2 is the best one personally, but you can't really play Sonic 3 without playing Sonic and Knuckles as well. Because each one of them plugs into Kirp, and then you can play as Knuckles. In Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, I believe, that lets you play as Knuckles. Probably my least favourite Sonic game on this system is Sonic Spinball. I'm not a big pinball fan, and I hate this series' obsession with it because it's asinine. Fine. I don't mind some pinball, but Sonic and pinball, there's other ways to use Sonic's skill set in a fun way, and pinball isn't it. Make him the golf ball or something, for example. That'd be fun. Oh dear. I'll get to him in a minute. Shining Force 1 and Shining Force 2. I got these this year, actually. They're 2 strategy RPGs, because I've been on a bit of a strategy RPG kick for a while now. And my family are very kind enough to get me these 2 for my birthday. And you know what? They're pretty good. They're pretty solid. They're a lot of fun. I think it's a shame the Shining series has kind of leaned into more the JRPG side of things nowadays, as opposed to the tactical or strategy RPG side of things. I think that's a pity. I mean, this was Sega's answer to Fire Emblem, and again, if you've watched my Fire Emblem video, you know I'm a big Fire Emblem fan. Very big Fire Emblem fan. I think it's a shame that, well, in general, Shining Force isn't around anymore. Shining is, Shining the franchise, I'm umming and ahhing quite heavily on Shining Force 3, because I could get it on here, and it would be nearly 300 quid. Or I could get a repro which has the 2 additional missions on it and just play that. There are other Shining games, but I think those 2 were kind of the original kick point. They're kind of I wouldn't say they're the best. I'd argue 3 is the best, but from what I've heard. But that's kind of like saying Panzer Dragoon Saga is the best Panzer Dragoon game. It's objectively true. But I think 1 and 2 are a good kicking off point if you're looking to get into the series. I am kind of staring at the other ones, but Shining Force is a very, very expensive franchise to collect for, which is a shame. Anyway, not you yet. Megalomania. I don't know what this is called in other territories, but it's a god simulation game where you are a megalomaniac trying to take over the world. I think a better version of this game exists in Evil Genius, specifically Evil Genius 2, but if you're looking for some kind of populace-inspired weirdness, not the worst place to go, but also not the best. I think it mostly benefits from having a manual so thick you can clobber someone to death with it. But, yeah. One of my first games, actually, for the Mega Drive. One of the first ones I picked up. I give it a go, actually. It's been a while. You know what? My only fighting game on a system that, from what I've heard, has a bucket load of them. Which is weird, considering how many I have on here. Eternal Champions, which I believe also continued to have, like, it had a bit of a series. So I think there was one on the 32X, which I think was Blackthorn. I think Blackthorn was a continuation of this in some way. And there was... yeah, there was. There was one on the Sega CD, from what I remember. But I don't think a lot of them continued the fighting game trend. It's not terrible. Its box art is hilarious. I mean, it's probably my favourite on here outside of... well, one I'll get to in a minute. But... yeah, it's very, very late 80s sci-fi, if you know what I mean. Like, I love that style. That just kind of really awkwardly muscular and comically underdressed kind of art style from that period that I enjoy so much. But yeah. I picked this up without really knowing what it was, largely because it was a quid, and that is the Menacer 6-game cartridge. You kind of need the Menacer gun, or light gun, to play it, so I've never played it. You know, actually, of the Sega consoles I own, that is the Mega Drive is the only one I don't have a light gun for, which is great. I mean, I've got one for the Saturn now, I've picked up one for the Dreamcast in the last year, and I picked up one for the Master System 2. So, I don't have one for the Mega Drive, which is very strange. Might have to... yeah. Okay, maybe, if my Polymega arrives this year, that'll be one of my first ports of call, will be to get that. Okay, here's another one. Echo the Dolphin. I quite like Echo the Dolphin. I'm fucking terrible at it because it's a game where you play as a dolphin, and dolphins need to breathe air. So as a result, you are constantly struggling with that. But you know what? Weirdly enough, its lore as a series is really interesting. It's bizarre. It's set in the far distant future where dolphins and humans have kind of created a interstellar empire, and then they get annihilated by this thing called the Horde or the Swarm or something like that. The Vortex, that was it. They're wiped out by the Vortex, and it's just so strange. Well, funny story. Like a lot of us, I was quite interested in the Intellivision Amico. We all know how that's gone, unfortunately. But one of the major games they were releasing, which will lead into another one of the major games they're releasing that I was super interested in, was apparently an Echo sequel. That third game that the director had always wanted to make before they made him reboot it with Defender of the Future, which apparently is on PS2. I might pick that up. It might be better. It might be easier to control than the one on the Dreamcast. Going off that Intellivision Amico thing, the other thing they were working on was Earthworm Jim 4. I kind of sort of grew up with this. Now, I didn't have a Mega Drive growing up at all. I got one substantially later in life, and I actually got it after I got the Saturn and the Dreamcast. Well, no, it went Dreamcast, Saturn, Mega Drive, and then Master System. So I've actually gone in reverse order. And then I recently got a Game Gear that doesn't work. Great. Anyway, what I did grow up with was the series. With Dan Castellaneta of Homer Simpson's fame voicing Earthworm Jim, and I still watch that show. And I'm 30. I've been watching that show since I was like 6 or 7, and I love it because it's insane. The games, on the other hand, I also have a real soft spot for. I had always intended to pick up the special edition on Sega CD for Earthworm Jim. I picked up Earthworm Jim 2, 2012. I think it was £4. It's now like 40. So. But, yeah. I really enjoy this game. I'm fucking terrible at it. I am absolutely atrocious at Earthworm Jim. But I have a real soft spot for this stupid game with its stupid characters. It's just a lot of fun. This one's a weird one, so I'm denied about keeping this for a long time, and then I got rid of it, and then I got it again, because that's sometimes just how it works. Starflight. Now, I have a bit of a weird thing with everything apart from the Xbox from 6th gen backwards. I like owning a space sim on different consoles, so I don't think I own one for the Master System yet. Or a space shooter of that kind of variety. So, for example, I've got Star Lancer on the Dreamcast. I have... what was it called? I thought I had Spaceship 3... Oh, yes, Starfighter 3000. And I think... Oh, I think that's it. Dreadful. Starfighter 3000 on the Saturn. I've got, obviously, Lilac Wars on the N64, stuff like that. Another Star Fox reference. What could that hinting at? But this was kind of a pseudo 4X game at a time where 4X games were limited. So, for example, you had the Amiga CD32. I have owned one of those in the past, and then I got rid of it because it sucked. That had Frontier Elite. I decided Starflight might be a pretty good game to kick off on. But it's not my only space sim. It is not my only space sim. Star Control. If you've seen my my 3DO video, you'll know how much I loved Star Control 2. I absolutely fell in love with it. So I was like, I'm going to need the first one. Now, the first one plays a bit more like a strategy game than the second one does. That one's decidedly more Mass Effect. This one's kind of more along the lines of, say... I don't know what the closest approximation to it would be. Just Star Control. The first 12 megabyte game. 12 megabits. Oh, 12 megabits. That's it. 12 megabits. That was impressive back then. But, yeah, I kind of had to pick this up. It's one of my top, I'd say, 5 games. Probably goes Earthworm Jim, Star Control, and then the other 3 that I'll get into now. But this game's solid. It's very, very good. I need to play it again. It's been a long time. Heartily recommend it. Not over the second one. Play the second one, but that one, solid. Okay. This one's a weird one. I only picked this up this year. I haven't got around to playing it yet, but it really, really got my attention. Gemfire. Nobody talks about Gemfire online. It's so hard to find anything about this game, because Koei, if you don't know, used to be, or who are now Tecmo Koei used to be kind of the big war simulation guys. They were mostly known for their Romance of the Three Kingdoms series, which they're still doing. It's even releasing over here now, which is interesting. I don't know how successful it is, but I've seen at least a few of them, like at least 2 or 3, so maybe it's doing well. Good for you. What I really wish they would do would be Gemfire 2, because they went, let's take that strategy game formula from Romance of the Blah Blah and stick it into into an independent fantasy setting. Something that can kind of stand on its own and just be genuinely interesting. Cast magic, recruit monsters of lore, and a battery backup to save games, which is always welcome. That has probably run out after 31 years. But, yeah. I think it's worth it to check out Gemfire. I haven't played it yet. I will, because I'm a big strategy game guy. But, yeah. Okay. My second favourite game on the Mega Drive, and one I am still really bad at. Herzog Zwei. This game was 50 quid when I bought it back in the day. I don't know what it is now. Probably the same. Might have even gone down. But kind of the first MOBA, in a way, in that you control a... Well, actually, no. It's got more in common with Supreme Commander, in that you control a mech, and then you build stuff with that mech, and then... Yeah. Solid game. Multiplayer, local, 1 to 2, which is great. Inspired Air Mech Arena back in the day. I don't know if that's still around. I don't really care. I didn't play it too much because it was just kind of not as good. The Zwei does actually mean something. It is actually a sequel. I believe the original came out on the FX 9000, I think, or FM Towns. It's a Japanese line of computers from back in the day, kind of like how the West had Commodore and Atari ST. They had FM Towns. I believe they're, in fact, of that line, I believe the first console to have CD-ROM technology was the FM Towns Marty. But, like, console specific, not like an add-on like the TurboGrafx CD, Famicom Disk System, or the Sega CD, Sega Mega CD. Yeah, interesting game. A lot of fun. Not my favourite. We're at my favourite. We are 33 minutes in now, and we are finally at my favourite. Rampart. I fucking love Rampart. I legitimately love Rampart. I am really bad at it. Insufferably bad at it. But it's still a ridiculous amount of fun. It kind of sucks that they removed the 3 players. It's only 1 to 2 on the Mega Drive. I'd imagine it's even worse on the Master System. But this game's kind of like a mixture of Tetris and Battleship, I suppose, is the best way I could put it. So you build up your fortress, and then you stick guns in it, and then you blow the crap out of at the enemy wall so they can't fire their guns. And you know what? It is a beauty. It is an absolute beauty. That is absolutely my favourite game on the Mega Drive. Love it to pieces. Took a while to track down a copy because it's freaking Genesis, but whatever. It's not Mega Drive. But anyway, that's my Mega collection. My Mega Drive collection. Thank you for watching. Feel free to check out any other videos on the channel. Like and subscribe if you like the Mega Drive collection. I'm planning on getting more in the near future. Not too sure what those more are going to be. It's the Mega Drive's certainly one of those systems that I really want to dig more into the library of. Probably along with the PS1 and definitely the Saturn. Always looking for more Saturn stuff. But yeah, Mega Drive, solid system. Anyways, guys, that's me signing off for another week.